Hey everyone, I'm Paul with MadCap Software. Welcome to our multi-part video series on styles in MadCap Flare. And yeah, it is multiple videos in here because styles is a really big subject. Currently, I've got 11 videos in this series, but if I had more time, I could just make more and more and more videos. So there's a lot to say. But my goal in this series is to focus on the things to give you a good foundation, to focus on the things that are most important to know at first, because you could just get lost in looking at styles and learning about them. And it's actually a lot of fun to go in and learn about styles and just gain more and more knowledge and play with it. But what we want to do is get you to where you're feeling comfortable, that you can maneuver around in Flare, use styles, be efficient. So in this first video, this introduction video, we're going to start out by talking about what is cascading style sheets, CSS. And then we are also going to take a brief look at the difference between using styles and local or inline formatting. And we'll take a look at some of the later videos. We'll just briefly talk about the later videos in this series, what's coming up. So hang on, and here we go. We're going to get into it with styles in Flare. Now with MadCap Flare, we're using cascading style sheets. And this is different than what you might see in some tools. Some tools you go into them, maybe they're using CSS, but some tools, they just have their own proprietary styles. Like Word, you go into Word and they got styles and that's cool. And you can use styles, but it's just for that document. And it's Word's rules. It's their thing. But with MadCap Flare, we're using cascading style sheets, which isn't something that Flare came up with. These are international standards. This is being used worldwide. And it was developed by a group called the World Wide Web Consortium. And they're at w3.org. And so Flare's just making use of this already established system and set of standards, which are used by people everywhere to control the look and feel of documents, and especially documents that you see up on the internet. How do they look? How do they work? And so that's what you're getting inside of Flare. Now, let's actually go into Flare and just take a quick look at this. So when you're working with styles, you're actually controlling all this from a separate file from your other stuff. And you go into the Content Explorer under Resources, and usually you'll keep it under a folder called Style Sheets. And we got one in here, and I'm just going to open this up. You could have multiple style sheets. This one just has one, and you can see the file extension there, which is CSS, Cascading Style Sheets. And you come in here, and this is where you control everything. So this is separate from all your content files, which are topics or snippets or template pages, which are in separate files. So this is very important, keeping the content separate from the presentation so that you're not just locked in to the presentation in that document. And you can freely use the formatting that's in that style sheet anywhere and everywhere. So that is very important for single sourcing and working smarter in Flare. So people hear that styles is this, really big thing and can be complex, and it can be complex, but it can also be simple once you break it down. And some people might be starting to hear about this and go, well, why does this have to be so complicated? Why you got to be this way? Why you got to make it hard? Why can't I just go into my documents and just say, I want it this color and this size, whatever? And well, we're not trying to make it hard. We're actually trying to make it easier for you. We're trying to make your life better. And I'm going to go into Flare and show you just a quick demonstration to illustrate the difference between styles and what's called local or inline formatting and why styles is preferred. All right, so inside of Flare, I can open up I've got a few documents in here where I've already put some formatting. And you can see in these bottom two paragraphs, I've got a couple of words that are red and larger than the other text, and it's bold. So there's some formatting in here. And you look at this and you go, well, these were done exactly the same way. And no, they were not. This first one was done locally or inline. And that's what you don't want to do. The second one was done with styles. So what's the difference? What's the big deal? Well, first of all, I want to talk about the terminology here. I like to use the term local formatting. And the reason why I like to use that term is for people who are brand new to styles. You are going to hear inline formatting a lot, and that is probably more widely used, but I don't like to use that because new people coming in to styles, they look and they go, okay, well, both of these are inline formatting. You got a line and there's formatting within the line. And are you telling me I can't do that? No, you can. You can do that. You just want to use styles and not this method. What people mean when they say inline formatting, I think it's that term is better for people who already kind of have an understanding. I'm going to go in and look at, so this is the more the WYSIWYG view. What you see is what you get. And the text editor is what's going on behind the scenes. And this becomes clear when you look at the markup behind the scenes. So you can see these paragraphs in here. And this is where the formatting was done on the first one right here. And you can see the text locally. Now put the font weight and the font size and the font color is all right here. It's inline, it's written inline in the markup. Whereas this one that was done with a style, you don't have the color and the size and the font weight in here. Instead, it's pointing to this other file, and in particular, this what is called a style class name that I named special emphasis, and that has meaning. And the meaning of it is it's bold, it's 14 point, and it's got this red color. And so I don't like to use inline formatting, but when you hear it, that is what people mean by it. So these were done separately. Okay, this one was done by simply highlighting text, and I went up in here and in the home ribbon, and I selected the color and the bold, and I changed the font size, and that wrote those values directly in the directly at that spot. Okay, so what's the big deal here? Well, I've got a couple of other topics in here, and if I open the second one and the third one, you're going to see they're all exactly the same. Now, if I am writing and I go, all right, I've got thousands of topics, snippets, all this stuff, and I decide I like this red big, font. It's but then I decide I kind of want to change it a little bit. So if I want to do that here on this spot locally, I would select it and I would go up and let's change the color. Let's make it like purple, and let's make the font bigger. Let's make it like 20 points. And you go, okay, there you go. But then if I go into my other topics, you still have the same old look in there. So if this is in thousands of topics, I have to go into thousands of places and change this. All right, well, with styles, it's not like that. I'm not going to change it here. I'm going to go into my style sheet, and this is the thing that I had created. And if I want to do kind of the same thing, I go in and I change my color, and let's just make it a dark green, and let's make the font, let's make this even bigger than the other one. Let's make it 30 point. All right, and I save that, and then I go back into this topic, and you can see it's changed there, and that topic it's changed there, and that topic is changed there. So if I've got thousands of topics, it's all changed just like that. So much easier and smarter to maintain that way. That's the difference between local or inline formatting and styles, and why you should always use styles unless you have a very, very, very good reason for doing local formatting. Now, I just kind of want to give you a brief preview of what's ahead of us in this video series. I've got 11 videos in this series, and I'm sure my problem is the same as yours, time. If I had a lot more time, I could create a lot more videos. And so with styles, CSS, this could go on and on and on and on. But what I tried to do is focus on some of the things that are going to be most important for you to learn it first and to give you that good foundation. So what we're going to talk about in the next video after this one is creating and editing style sheets. So you already saw a style sheet. Well, if you create a new Flare project using one of the project templates, it's already there. Usually you have at least one style sheet, maybe more in there. And you can add more style sheets as you want. And then, of course, editing is super important. You open it up, and there's actually 3 ways to open up a style sheet in Flare and edit it. But you need to learn some basics about editing those styles just so that you can perform and do the most essential things without being a super wizard at styles. So we're going to look at editing style sheets. We are also going to take a look at primary versus local style sheets, because you can have style sheets set at different levels in Flare, so that you can have one style sheet that's used by tons of files, or you could get really, really narrow and use a particular style sheet for one or just a handful of files, of topics. Then we are going to go down the path of checking out selectors, which you'll hear selectors, you'll hear styles. Some of this terminology, people mean the same thing. So technically in a style sheet in CSS, there are these selectors. And so styles and different kinds of selectors in there. And we're going to explore that a little bit, see what some of the different kinds of selectors are, what you would use in most cases. And we're going to talk about applying styles. Of course, that's going to be really important because you got this style sheet and all this formatting, but your Flare can't read your mind. You have to tell Flare, what do you want to use? So you open up topics and snippets and template pages, and you apply styles. You say, for this content, I want it to use this style. And this content, I want to use that style. And we're going to take a look at how you do that. Then there is a feature in Flare called the Style Inspector. And it's not something that everybody is going to use, but it can be a really handy thing to kind of work with styles right there at that spot when you're editing a content file, rather than opening up the full style sheet and just sort of inspecting what's going on with your styles and playing around with things. We are then going to talk about MadCap styles and properties. Now, I said CSS is this international standard, and there are just basic styles that are just set. P style is for paragraphs. H1 style is for heading 1. And there are styles for lists and tables and things like that. But Flare has some features in it that are really unique that nobody else has. And so in order to make those work in this world, we had to create some specific MadCap styles that work with your CSS and some specific properties that go with those styles. So we're going to look at that a little bit. Then we are going to explore inheritance. You're going to hear about inheritance in styles and cascading style sheets. And this is a really important concept so that you understand how styles work with each other and how they work in these topics with this tags and the structure, and why sometimes you might be seeing one thing and sometimes you might be seeing another thing. And it has to do with this idea of inheritance. Then there are mediums. And so mediums are a really, really cool, powerful way in Flare and in CSS to have different settings for different purposes, but you're all doing it from the same style sheet. So in a way, it's sort of like single sourcing in a style sheet. So it's really a really cool thing. Then there are media queries, which are sort of like the cousins of mediums. They're not the same thing. They're related, but they're different. And this has to do with controlling the look and feel of your content depending on the device. Maybe it's a big device, a tablet, or a mobile device, and you can switch up the look and feel for the different devices. It's super smart, and it just kind of kicks in. So depending on what the person's doing, and you don't have to worry about it. You just set it up in your style sheet, and there you go. And then finally, we're going to look at table styles. Now, there are some basic styles in CSS for tables, but Flare did this really unique thing in creating these separate style sheets for tables specifically. And it's still using the idea of CSS, but Flare has some unique things in there that allow you to configure and provide a design for your tables that in a way that is easier with these style sheets than it could be otherwise in your regular style sheet. So that is a look at what is ahead. Now, maybe you're thinking, well, okay, so where do I get these other videos? How do I find them? Well, you just go to the very, very end of this video. You're going to see a link to a playlist that has all the styles videos in there. There you go. So again, my goal here in this series is to give you this foundation of just the things that are the most essential to learn when you're first getting started. And then once you learn that stuff, I mean, it's just almost limitless. There are all kinds of tangents you can go down to really become an expert on CSS. Okay, now before I let you go, I just want to make it clear that I am not the world's foremost authority on CSS. I'm not by a long shot. I'm like anybody else. One day I learned about it and I knew nothing, and I just gained in knowledge over the years. I wish I had more time to go in and just soak in it and learn more and more and more. But usually what happens is I need to accomplish something, and then I'll figure it out. And now I know that thing, and then I learn the next thing later when I need it. But what I'm talking about in this series, this isn't everything. I want to give you some resources that you should also take a look at just to educate yourself as time goes by. So I had mentioned the World Wide Web Consortium, the group that develops these standards, and you can go to w3.org, see their website. There's all kinds of stuff to read. You can go to their search and search for whatever you want to look up. Another good resource that I like is w3schools.com. You can go and sign up in there, and there's a lot of information and some interactivity. And another really cool thing is this online coding editor, and it's at codepen.io. And this is a really cool way to go in and just try out different things and see what works. And so you probably want to maybe dip your toes in the CSS water at first and learn some basics. And then after a while, you come in here and see what's what. And this is a really, really cool site. Also go to the MadCap Software website and go into resources. And then there's free industry webinars. And so you can, they record them. And so you can search for them, find them. And there's different ones on styles that are really helpful. And then in the online help, I would suggest that you go into tutorials, and there are some styles tutorials in here, just a handful. And the really good thing about this is you are actually following these directions, but you're opening up Flare. You're actually working in Flare, learning styles, putting these things together as you go. So I would do that stuff as well. And along with these tutorials, if you look at the top here in this toolbar, you're going to see some quick links. And this one says C on it, and that is a link to a cheat sheet. And so this is just a few pages long, and it can give you just some overview, just some just really quick information on some of the things that are most important, especially when you're just getting started, some key concepts, and then the most common styles that you're going to be dealing with, quick links or just quick steps in here for some really, really common tasks and some tips. Instead of trying to dig through the mountains and mountains of information, you can just have a reminder in here of what's most important. Oh, and some shortcuts in here too. So those are just a handful of resources that you have available. So there we are. Now we are going to jump in to the next video. So just open up the next video in this series, and we are going to be on our way to understanding, exploring, and working with styles.